Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's audibletrial.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Jeffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. That's betterhelp.com/Nerdery and Murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
We are going to talk about some Gen X geeky shit today.
Welcome to episode 211 of Nerdery and Murdery.
Big 211. I'm Zig with your nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery. Welcome to another week of the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good and the bad, and the nerd and the murd. I know we're in the path for those of you now, but even though it's late and you're hearing it, for us, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
I'm excited. My daughter is going to call me this afternoon. She pinged me yesterday. She goes, "Can I call you tomorrow?" I said, yeah.
Please.
That'll make my day.
Please.
You kidding me? So excited about that. Excited to hear from her. I was going to mention, so I think we're about 8 or 10 episodes in, and most of you have probably noticed there was different beginning music at the beginning of our shows. When our producer went through, when he went through editing everything, he accidentally put our end music on the beginning and the end, and we were like, we'll leave it. Let people listen to it for a little bit.
Let's fuck with them a little bit.
Yeah.
I believe is what I read.
We left them. Now, the new ones, the last 3 episodes all had our new power ballad, Nerdery and Murdery music. I've created all those with AI, and I think they're really cool. So hopefully you enjoyed it. I know it's a long beginning to sit through all that music, but we should be back to our normal opening music this week, and our normal or our close music with our generated stuff. So anyway, yeah. So that's the reason for that. Those of you who probably noticed, and I'm sure I'll probably get emails on it.
You tell them it's my fault. I said, go ahead, leave it in. Let's fuck with them.
Yeah. Uh, Michael Shanks over at Two Geeks and a Microphone has become addicted to disc golf.
Really?
He pinged me this week. They've got a disc golf course real close to him. I don't remember if he said across the street or just down the block or something like that. But yeah,
We've got one within walking distance too.
It's supposed to be a fun game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Our listener Paul, he plays fling golf and has sent me some videos of him playing fling golf. You use this stick and you fling the golf ball instead of hitting it.
Oh, like a addle?
I don't
A
know.
spear thrower?
Uh,
Or is it like the little thing with a dog ball?
It's not like that. It's not quite like that. It's not not like the dog ball one.
You know what? I'll
describe
look it up.
it.
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah. You can look up fling golf, but I just think it's funny. Friend of ours and a listener, and then a listener, both into different types of golf, like me. It is freaking hot out like golf right now.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday, of course, it's June right now as of the recording. Kim and Lorelai have a birthday 6 days apart. What they really, really wanted to do was go to a big, basically a drag show. And since Lorelai's 11, the only way we could do that was to go to the Arlington Pride Festival. We went yesterday, and it was hot. So hot.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. And my dad came into town. He's like, I want to go. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, hey, yeah. Because again, his brother, my uncle / brother, because I was raised with my grandparents,
Right.
Used to do hair. He's like, oh, no, this is a lot of fun. These people are awesome.
I'm not going to tail off on a political rant. I don't want to do that at all. But I'm just curious because yesterday was for us was June 14th. I'm surprised in Arlington that wasn't preempted by the No Kings protest. We've had
it was happening. It was happening about a block away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it ended a couple of hours before Pride started, and a lot of those protesters were already dressed up in Pride regalia, so they just walked over.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it was cool. I mean, it was a love fest from start to finish. It was hot.
We had a lot of those protests down here in the valley. As far as I know, they were all peaceful.
Yeah. Well, I've seen images from San Antonio where it was like a giant street party. I was like, oh man, I really want to go to that.
Yeah,
that looks like fun.
I avoided them. I mean, just simply because the whole thing just kind of made me a little nervous because
yeah.
It's
I was a little nervous going into Arlington, but honestly, it was a love fest. We were standing next to a couple of APD guys, just kind of doing a sidestep. Arlington PD, just do a little sidestep with them. So apparently they were having a good time too. There were some counter protests, but it was like 5 people, and I was like, and I think my kid walked up and went, the entrance is over here. We're having a lot of fun, and I was like, oh my god. I don't think the kid realized what she had stepped into.
Well,
but it was hysterical, and the cops started laughing, and that's when we started doing a little side dance.
As long as it was peaceful, like I said, I haven't seen anything about here in the valley about any problem.
Totally peaceful in Arlington.
A little surprising here in the valley that there weren't any problems because ice raids have been rampant.
You're in the valley, yeah.
Yeah,
you're right there on the border.
It's been very rampant down here. I mean, there's I see daily updates on Facebook of where ice is being, is raided, and it's just banned.
I don't get it. I don't understand.
Let's not get political because I will get political on this one, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I don't get it. Anyway, I want to go back to the days of the Treaty of Hidalgo. Well, I'll say that way. I want to go back to the days of the Treaty of Hidalgo, which we had for 150 years. It was
I don't even remember that treaty, but like I said, I just there's very polarizing opinions on both sides of that, and I don't want to get polarizing one way or the other. No matter.
We don't want to polarize anybody. Yeah, no polarize people. Yeah, we're talking about the only politics we want to talk about is the politics in Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to talk about the politics of the day. Um, the last thing I had, we do have a couple of listeners who came up to me Wednesday or Thursday, anyway, one of those 2 days, and they were like, "Hey, we want to come on your show and just rip on y'all." And I went, "Okay, let's do it." So we may get a couple of listeners to bring on. I told them I'd let them know, kind of arrange a date.
Okay.
They just want to come on and have fun. I think episode 222, I think it is, would probably be a really good one. That's the Rio Grande Valley one.
Did
I
you
think
get
that would.
Jen? Did you get
No,
Jen?
no, it's not Jen.
Damn
It's
it.
not Jen.
Damn it.
Um, no, it's a couple other people I know. They just want to be goofy, and I'm like, okay, I don't care."
The more the merrier, baby. The more
Yeah.
the merrier.
So anyway, so that I may see if I can get them on for that episode. I think that would be interesting. They're both longtime Valley residents. I think one of them has been here his whole life, so
Nice.
they may both have been. I'm not 100% certain of that, but anyway, that's all I had. You got anything else you want to kick us off?
No, no. I wanted to mention what a love fest Arlington Pride was, but I already did that. So
Awesome.
today we're going to talk about second generation consoles.
Okay.
So the ones we're going to talk about today are the Fairchild Channel F, the Atari 2600, the Bally Astrocade, the Magnavox Odyssey, the Intellivision, the Magnavox Odyssey 2, the Emerson Arcadia 2001, the ColecoVision, the Atari 5200, the Vectrex, the Bandai Supervision, the Epoch Cassette Vision, the VTech Create Vision, the Compact Vision TV RCA Studio 2, 1292 Advanced Programmable Video System, VC400 or 4000, APF MP1000, and Unisonic Champions 2711.
Thought we covered some of these already.
We have. I wanted to cover them as a grouping.
Hmm.
And some of these I have never even fracking heard of.
No, I haven't heard of them either.
Yeah, but
I mean, I
I
know
kind of
we
wanted
did.
to start doing console generations
Well, I
because
know
we
we
did
did in television. I know we've done
Fairchild.
Fairchild. I think Fairchild was actually an exclusive.
Was it?
It
Okay.
may have been.
But I
It
think
may have
we did
been.
a big Atari exclusive too.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, don't want to bog them down with a lot of repeat on it, but I know we did those ones. I thought we did the ColecoVision at one point, but we may have just mentioned
We,
it.
yeah. I honestly wanted to get. I started writing this episode up as the ColecoVision. I was like, wait a minute, maybe we should talk about the generation as a whole because it was amazing. There's a lot of stuff in it.
Hmm.
A lot of stuff that just didn't go. Um, in the history of video games, the second generation era refers to computers and video games and video game consoles and handheld video game consoles available from 1976 to 1992. Notable platforms on the second generation include the Fairchild Channel F, the Atari 2600, the Intellivision, the Odyssey 2, and the ColecoVision. The generation began in November of 1976 with the release of the Fairchild Channel F. This was followed by the Atari 2600 in 1977, the Magnavox Odyssey 2 in 1978, and the Intellivision in 1980. And then the Emerson Arcadia 2001, ColecoVision, Atari 5200, and Vectrex all in 1982. By the end of the era, there were over 15 different consoles. It coincided with and was partly fueled by the golden age of arcade video games. The peak era of popularity and innovation for the media resulted in many games from second generation home consoles being ports of arcade games. Space Invaders, the first killer app arcade game to be ported, was released in 1980 for the Atari 2600. Though earlier Atari published arcade games were ported to 2600 previously. Coleco packaged Nintendo's Donkey Kong with the ColecoVision when it was released in August of 1982. So I'll stop with the dry ass notes and say this. For consoles, ColecoVision or Coleco got the rights to produce the Donkey Kong cartridge for all consoles. So they made their own for ColecoVision, which was it was very close to the arcade port, about as close as you could get with existing technology.
Yep.
They released Donkey Kong for all the other consoles, and it was not as close as you could get.
No.
And they did that on purpose to make their Donkey Kong look better.
Yeah, not in the least little bit. Well,
I loved the Atari 2600 one, but it was only 2 screens, and I could play it for hours.
yeah, I mean, the Atari 2600 one was okay. The thing about the ColecoVision is, number one, they were late into the game,
Mm-hmm.
but they benefited from that, as video game companies often will. They benefited from advanced tech and prior games, and pound for pound, pixel for pixel, if you will, Coleco, out of the three bigs, Atari 2600 and Television Coleco, because those are your three bigs at the time. ColecoVision had the best graphics.
It did. Best sound too.
And it wasn't even close.
No, it was like shooting a bullet and throwing it. The Odyssey 2, I would say, was comparable, but not many people had the Odyssey 2.
Right.
But yeah, I would say the ColecoVision. Not only that, ColecoVision made an add-on where you could run Atari 2600 games on it. You just plugged it in. It's the same port they used for the Atom later on. But yeah, you just plugged right in. It was a little piece that sat on the front of it, and you could play Atari 2600 games on it. There was a lawsuit, a counter lawsuit, and eventually they got it all figured out. But yeah, they kept running it. They did have an actual Atari 2600 full-on console that they released. They had to stop doing that. But the front port that they would pop, you could pop on. No, they kept producing that. So in the original console, the Generation 1, built-in games were all the rage. They were basically Pong consoles, Pong clones. They did have built-in games on the second generation, but it was pretty limited. Magnavox Odyssey had put games on cartridge-like circuit cards. This game had limited functionality and required TV screen overlays and other accessories to be fully functional. More advanced cartridges, which contain the entire game experience, were developed by Fairchild, which we've said before, and most video game systems adopted similar technologies. The first system of the generation and some others, such as the RCA Studio 2, still came with built-in games, while also having the capability of utilizing cartridges. The popularity of game cartridges grew after the release of the Atari 2600, which again, as Jeffrey said, you had three bigs. Atari 2600 basically ruled the roost for, what do you say? Because, okay, so 1977, it didn't sell real well. It sold pretty good. 78, it sold pretty good. 79 and 80, it blew up. And every home had one. It was amazing. And I want to say by 1981, 82, they dropped the price on it and everything else. And I think everybody basically had one in their house somewhere. From the late 70s to the mid 90s, most home video game systems used cartridges until the technology was replaced with optical discs. The Fairchild Channel F was also the first console to use a microprocessor, which was driving technology that allowed the console to use cartridges. Other technologies such as screen resolution, color graphics, audio, and AI simulation was also improved during this era. The generation also saw the first handheld game cartridge system, the Microvision, which was released by the toy company Milton Bradley. In 1979, Activision was created by former Atari programmers and was the first third-party developer of video games. A small company through the 1980s, it gradually grew into a 21st century gaming giant. I believe Activision owns everybody else now. In the early 80s, many large corporations, spurred by the success of home video game industry, and especially the Atari 2600, which was originally called the VCS, launched or bought subsidiaries to produce video game console software. And by 1982, the shelf capacity of toy stores was overflowing with an overabundance of consoles, overhyped game releases, and low quality games from new third party developers. An oversaturation of consoles and games, coupled with poor knowledge of the market, saw the video game industry crash in 1983. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Everything's going pretty swimmingly for Atari. They're starting to get some pushback from like in television. Television's giving them a bit of a run for their money, and then ColecoVision comes out, and it kind of blew their doors off because, as Jeffrey said, they got the best graphics and the best sound, and their games are just better. So Atari decides to use the existing Atari 400 and 800 computer technology to build a new console. They decided to build the 5200, which, if they'd have been smart, they'd have made that bad boy backwards compatible with the Atari 400 and 800 series, because a lot of people had already moved on from consoles to these little Atari computers, which were amazeballs. They were giving Commodore a run for their money at one point, because the Atari 5200 and the Atari 400 and 800 were basically the same hardware. It's just it didn't have a keyboard. But because they were different parts of the same company, they were different divisions. The people running the Atari 5200 line decided that they didn't want to do that. No, we don't. It was corporate infighting. So instead, they basically took the Atari 400 cartridges and made them bigger so they wouldn't fit into the 5200. So the 5200 games wouldn't fit in an Atari 400 or an 800, which again, really similar technology. And the Atari 800 and 400 cartridges would not fit in the Atari 5200. And instead of using tried and true technology, they decided to come up with this whole new off-centered game stick, which was supposed to be revolutionary and wonderful. And it is the worst controller that has ever been made. You cannot find one out in the wild which works properly. They break within a few weeks of use. To this day, no one's been able to come up with a replica that works properly. They've got some other ones that you could plug in and work just fine, but they're not the Atari controller, 5200 controller. It was a piece of garbage. Whereas if they'd have used existing technology, they probably would have been fine, but they didn't. They didn't use the same pinout. Atari corrected that with their next console. But yeah, so the 5200 is trying to compete with the ColecoVision, but it's a piece of dog shit. Let's just let's put a spade. Call a spade a spade.
I knew a total of one person that had a 5200.
My dad had one. It was great until the controller stopped working.
Yeah, no, the graphics on it were great. But it was my next door neighbor when I was in middle school had a 5200. And yeah, the graphics on it were really cool. It was pretty wild. It definitely rivaled Coleco, but 2600 was so big still. I mean, it had so many cartridges, and the big bust for Atari 2600 was ET. The huge bust, because they produced more cartridges than there were actual consoles, which was weird.
Stupid.
Yes, and it lost them a lot of money.
Oh my God! And Howard Warshaw was deemed a pariah in the industry when he was given an impossible task.
Yeah. And consequently, because of that, and it pisses me off to this day, they were never able to finish the Sword Quest series, which was supposed to be 4 video games. They came out with 3. And the thing that made me mad about it wasn't that I couldn't get the last game itself, because the games were so freaking hard.
Hmm.
Almost impossible. Yeah, I say almost impossible. There was people that completed it, but the whole thing with Sword Quest is they had a jeweled sword that was going to go to one person who could finish the game. You had to get to the end of the game and you got a code which you had to send in. Um, and all told, there was like, I don't know, it was somewhere like and this is in the 80s, $150,000 worth of prizes they were giving out for Sword
Hmm.
Quest. So anyway, so you had the four. It was the fact that there was a comic book with each game
Hmm.
that explained the whole plot of everything. They never finished the comic. I have no idea what was supposed to happen at
You
the
don't know
end,
how it
and that
ends.
pisses me off. I can't believe that no one ever completed the comic book.
Oh, they never completed. I do think they finally made the fourth game, though.
They
Someone finally
didn't.
made the fourth game.
They did not.
They did not.
I was looking it up. No one's ever made the fourth. They tried,
Uh huh.
but no one's ever gotten one out.
Okay. Okay. That sucks because I actually thought that they finally made some third party person had finally made the fourth game.
Mm-mm. No, they tried, and they've never finished, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
I want to know how the comic ended.
Well, yeah, like I said, I don't know about the comic, but I thought they actually finished the game. Um, so, beginning in December of '82 and stretching through all of '84, the crash of '83 caused major disruptions in the North American market. Some developers collapsed and almost no new games were released in 1984. The market did not fully recover until the third generation. The second generation ended in January 1st, 1992, with the discontinuation of Atari 2600. So, for those keeping track and keeping score out there, that means that the Atari 2600 was produced from 1977 to January 1st, 1992, which I still find amazing. But they were still making them. People were still buying them too, because it was one of those things. They got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and smaller and smaller and smaller. So basically, people were buying them and putting them like in RVs and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not worried if we hit a bump and the thing goes flying. It didn't cost that much, but I don't want to put that that brand new Genesis we got in there. The primary driver of second generation consoles was the introduction of the low cost microprocessor. Arcade games in the first generation console used discrete electronic components, including simple logic chips such as transistor to transistor logic, based integrated circuits, and custom application specific integrated circuits. Uh, ASICs and TTL and ICS for those in the know. Like the AY3 8500 were produced to replicate these circuits within a single chip, but still presented only a small fixed logic program. Once a game was shipped, there were only minimal variations that could be made by adjusting the position of jumpers. Effectively, the behavior of the cartridges that shipped with the Magnavox Odyssey. As Atari Inc. recognized, spending from 100 to 250,000 and several months of development time on a hardware unit with a single dedicated game was only 3 months shelf life before it was outdated by the competitors' offerings was not a practical business model, and instead some types of programmable consoles would be preferred. Intel introduced the first microprocessor, the fourth, its first microprocessor, the 4004, in 1971. It was a special computer chip that could be sent simple instructions to provide its results. This allowed the ability to create software programs around the microprocessor rather than fix the logic into circuits and IC engines. At both Atari Inc., via its Cyan Engineering subsidiary, and the Alpex Computer Corporation saw the potential to apply this to home consoles as prices for microprocessors became more affordable. Alpex's work led to partnerships with semiconductor manufacturer Fairchild Camera and Instruments and led to the release of the first such programmable home console, the Fairchild Channel F. The use of ROM cartridges to provide the software for the programmable console consisted of a ROM chip mounted on a circuit board within a hard casing that can withstand the physical insertion into the console and potential static electricity buildup. And again, this is Atari saw this and took off. Most of the stuff in the 1977 VCS or Atari 2600 was based around the MOS Technology 6507 processor. Um, and again, they were sold to Warner Communications, and Warner kind of screwed it up. As we said, we talked about the Fairchild before. Um, it was originally called the Fairchild Video Entertainment System, and it was released by Fairchild. And eventually, they called it Channel F. It was basically a reprogrammable Pong console. It was the first one I had. I'd like to talk about another one that I've seen, but I don't really remember playing it. Maybe you have. It was the Bally Astrocade.
Mhm.
It's a second generation home video console. It's a simple computer system designed by the team at Midway and the video game division of Bally. It was originally announced the Bally Home Library computer in October of 1977 and initially made available for mail order in December of 77. But due to production delays, the units were first released to stores in April of 78. And its branding changed to Bally Professional Arcade. It was marked only for a limited time before Bally decided to exit the market. The rights were later picked up by a third-party company who re-released it and sold it until around 1994. The Astrocade is particularly notable for its very powerful graphics capabilities for the time of release and for the difficulty in accessing those capabilities. The Astrocade came with a with a handle with a. It was basically like a pistol grip, and it had a little dial on top with a trigger, much like the Channel F, but the Channel F was more. It was very tiny. The dial was just big enough for you to get two fingers around, thumb and forefinger. Um, and I think it also had a pistol that came with it built in, and it actually looked like an old Wild West gun, like a six gun. Um, the Arcadia 2001, again, this is one I have never even seen, is a second generation 8-bit home video console released by Emerson Radio in May of 82 for a price of 99 US dollars. Several months before the release of ColecoVision, it was discontinued after only 18 months, with a total of 35 games having been released. Emerson licensed the Arcadia 2001 to Bandai, which released it in Japan. Over 30 Arcadia 2001 clones exist, despite the system being a commercial failure. The unrelated Arcadia Corporation, manufacturer of the Supercharger add-on for the Atari 2600, was sued by Emerson for trademark infringement. Arcadia Corporation then changed its name to Starpath. Now we're going to talk about one we have mentioned but never got in deep. That is the Vectrex. Jeffrey, would you like to introduce the Vectrex?
I will. Hang on, real quick. I have to go back. You are correct. They did in 2022 release Airworld as part of Atari 50 on Xbox, PlayStation, and there was another one I saw. So you're
The
right.
the new Atari console. Well, it's not new now.
I
I
didn't
think they
see
actually
that.
call it the VCS.
I didn't see that one in there. But yeah, no, they actually did release Airworld finally. That's wild.
Nice.
2022.
So you
Um,
can play it.
the if you can play it. Vectrex was a really cool little machine. It was this self-contained box. Um, it was about, I don't know, about maybe a foot and a half tall and I don't know, 6 to 8 inches wide, something like that. But I mean, it was a little tiny little arcade cabinet. And the controls were all built onto the box itself, and you played these little vector graphic video games. Again, this is one where I knew one person that had it, and we played it all the time, all the time. It was just a cool little video game. It was the only colors. It was red, green, blue. Red, greens, and
Mhm.
blues were your colors
Mhm.
on it. It was very basic. Um, I mean, hell, not even 8-bit.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a vector graphics. But then again, the Star Wars game, which we love so much, is all vector graphics.
Yes, if you've ever seen the Star Wars game, that's exactly the type of graphics you saw on Vectrex, just in this little portable machine. Vectrex was cool.
Yeah, and it was the first one that was really kind of portable. I mean, if you
Hmm.
think about it,
Yeah.
because you could pick it up and take it wherever you wanted to, just plug it in and play.
Yeah.
It is a vector-based home video game console that only ever designed and released for the home market. It was developed by Smith Engineering and manufactured and sold by General Consumer Electronics. It was first released for the North American market in October of '82, and then Europe and Japan in '83. Originally produced by General Consumer Electronics, it was later licensed to Milton Bradley after they acquired the company. Bandai released the system in Japan. Um, so again, it was portable. The console was conceived by John Ross Smith Engineering in late 1980 as a handheld, what he called a mini arcade system. It did not fare well after um, the video game crash. The Vectrex was praised for its software library, unique graphics capabilities, and built-in monitor. Several publications lauded it as one of the best consoles available at the time. Vectrex was the first console to have like a 3D-based peripheral. So actually, it looked really 3D when you were playing it.
Hmm.
A color handheld version of the Vectrex was conceived in the late 80s, but was shelved because of its manufacturing cost and the success of the Nintendo Game Boy. The Vectrex, again, it was bought out by Milton Bradley, who wanted to take it over. But it's amazing.
I'm
Um,
sorry, the controller wasn't built onto the box itself. I'm because I'm looking at a picture now.
yeah,
It was
wait,
it was by cable, but it was permanently connected.
yeah. But you could snap it into place underneath.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. And it had a little joystick on it.
and it's slightly larger than I remembered. I thought it was only about 6 to 8 inches wide. It may be a
It's a
little
little bit
larger,
bigger.
but
Yeah,
realize the last time I played this thing was in the 1980s,
the
folks.
1980s. Yeah. The 1980s. So we've talked about,
Star Trek, the video game, Vectrex had a Star Trek cartridge
yes, it did. Yes, it did.
that was just like the arcade.
It was. It was. So let's talk about the ColecoVision. This is the point where we really wanted to get to, but I wanted to talk about the Vectrex too, because we've mentioned it several times and we actually wanted to go into the production. And the problem with the Vectrex, it hit, it hit at the wrong time. If the Vectrex had been released like a year earlier, I think it would have sold a lot better. It still sold pretty well, and everybody loved it. So ColecoVision was a console developed by the Coleco company. Uh, Coleco had already contemplated shifting their focus to their Cabbage Patch Kids doll line. They were actually a toy company. Uh, they entered the video game market in '76 during the dedicated game home console period, or version one, with a Telstar console. What a Telstar console was a pawn clip. um, they did do some handheld electronic games with production that beat out those of the current market leader, Mattel. Um, they licensed rights from arcade game makers such as Sega, Bally, Midway, and Nintendo. Coleco was able to survive on sales of their electronic games through to 1982, but the market itself began to wane, and Coleco president Arnold Greenberg was still interested in producing a home video game console. According to Eric Bromley, who led the engineering team for the ColecoVision, Greenberg had wanted to get into the programmable home console market with arcade quality games, but the cost of components had been a limiting factor as early as 1979. Bromlin had drawn out specifications for a system using a Texas Instruments video and General Instrument audio chip, but could not get the go-ahead due to the cost of RAM. Now, around 1981, Bromley saw an article in the Wall Street Journal that asserted the prices of RAM had fallen, and after working the cost numbers, Bromley found the system cost fell within their cost margins. As soon as he told that to Greenberg greenlit him. They did recognize conversions of arcade games had worked for Atari when they sold the Atari VCS, so they had approached Nintendo around 1981 for potential access to their arcade titles. Brownlee described a tense set of meetings with Nintendo president Hiroshi Yamauchi under typical Japanese custom, where he sought to negotiate for games rights, though Yamauchi only offered seemingly obscure titles. After a meal with Yamauchi during one day, Brownlee excused himself to the restroom and happened upon one of the first Donkey Kong cabinets, which had yet to be released in Western countries. Knowing this game would likely be a hit, Bromley arranged a meeting the following day with Yamauchi and requested the exclusive rights to Donkey Kong. Yamauchi offered them if only they could provide $200,000 upfront by the day and give them $2 per unit sold. Greenberg agreed. Though it was in Japanese custom, Bromley did not have a formal contract from Nintendo on his return. By the time of that year's Consumer Electronics Show with Yamauchi was attending, Bromley found out from Yamauchi's daughter and translator that he'd apparently given the rights to Atari, which Yamauchi's daughter held. Bromley was able to commit Yamauchi to sign a formal contract to affirm the rights to Coleco. And again, so Coleco, because they had made the deal with Atari, Coleco was like, you know what? We will honor it. We will produce the Donkey Kong cartridge for your game. And again, they did. They produced it for the Atari 5200, which was a little better than the 2600 version, but none of the Donkey Kongs were ever as good as they were for the Coleco Vision. It was distributed by CBS Electronics outside of North America and was branded the CBS ColecoVision in Europe. The console was released in July of 1983. Nearly 1 year after the North American release, Sega Enterprises attempted a Japanese version of the console, but it was retooled, and that's when they made this SG-1000, which eventually gave us the Sega Genesis. In the beginning of 1984, quarterly sales of the Coleco had dramatically decreased, and in January of 1985, Coleco discontinued the Atom. So, ColecoVision's expansions. Let's talk about those. They had the expansion module for the Atari 2600, and they also made a Gemini game system, which was a standalone clone of the 2600. They had to quit making the Gemini game system, but they did find that the expansion module, as long as they paid Atari a piece of it, was fine. Expansion module 2 is a driving controller, which is a steering wheel and a gas pedal that comes out and you can put it on the floor. Although Coleco called the driving controller an expansion module, it actually plugs into the controller port and it's not part of the expansion module interface. It's compatible with Turbo, which actually came with the expansion module itself, Destructor, Bump and Jump, Pit Stop, and the Dukes of Hazzard game. Expansion Module 3 converted the ColecoVision into the Atom computer, complete with keyboard, digital data pack, cassette drive, and a printer. They also had a roller controller and a super action controller that came out as well. But I want to talk about the Atom and what a mess that was. So, it presented as a concept, was positively received. However, the execution of the Atom was poor. I had a friend who had one. He had to send it back 3 or 4 times, and I don't think it ever worked right. The problem was that the power in the Atom, it was a computer add-on for your ColecoVision, which is exactly what we talked about at Television wanted to do. ColecoVision successfully made it. The problem was that the power supply ran through the printer first. And if the printer didn't boot up properly, your Atom wouldn't work. And you still had to have your ColecoVision plugged into it. It was a daisy wheel dot matrix printer, which are, no offense, kind of indestructible. I don't know if you guys, let me borrow the Podback machine. Before the advent of single page printers were basically indestructible. But they had this tractor paper and you couldn't do much with them other than print documents. And you had to pull that tractor paper off because it was perforated. Because it always kept it lined up and running. Once they went to single sheet paper in stacks, that's where the problem started, because they basically tried to turn printers into printing presses, essentially. And we have had problems with printers to this day. Ask any of your IT friends, what's the thing they hate to work on or don't want to work on or are glad that they've got a contractor who works on it? Printers.
I'll disagree with that.
Yeah.
Printers are number two these days because, and the only reason I say printers are number two is because printing is becoming a little bit less as we've gone less and less to a
Finally,
paperless society. I
finally.
mean, there is still a lot of it out there. So
Mhm.
printers are number two to personal devices,
Oh.
regardless of what they are. When a company allows people to bring their personal device onto their network and work, and then you have to support it,
Mhm.
that's the number one.
Number one.
One.
Number one.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I agree with you. Number two is printers, only because
Number
we
two is
don't
printers.
print as much.
Correct.
Finally.
Yes.
But the thing about the Atom printer, again, it's daisy wheel, dot matrix printer. They're virtually indestructible, except for this one. Because of the way they routed the power through the printer and then through the computer and then back to the video game console, it was so haphazardly run that the printer would die. And if the printer wasn't working, it didn't get that signal run through it. The Atom itself wouldn't work. So you couldn't just run it without the printer. The printer had to be working. And it was a great idea because the idea was this is going to be the cheapest computer you can get on the market with a printer. And it was. It was. It was the cheapest computer you could buy on the market with a printer. The only problem is it didn't work very well. And they were plagued with problems. It was on the news how badly they screwed up. They would send them back, and the user would get it back, and they would run it for a few days, and then the same problem would persist. Eventually, toward the end of the Atom's life, because they only had it out for about a year and a half, I think, because it came out in '83, and by '85 it was gone. But by the end of the Atom's life, the ones that they were shipping worked perfectly. They worked perfectly. They had two tape drives on the front of them. One of which was, I think, never used, but you could pop in tapes as well as cartridges into the ColecoVision. Because again, you had to have the ColecoVision to run it because it plugged into the Atom. But you could use those in combo to basically expand your hardware capability. It was amazing once they worked the bugs out. But by the time they worked the bugs out, people weren't interested anymore. They were getting old Commie 64s. And the software library was kind of limited for the Atom as well, because again, it had its own software that you had to use in conjunction with the ColecoVision. I think eventually no, there is a cartridge port on the front of it. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. But you could do basic computing and other stuff, and still play uh, your computer. Uh, do like your typing and a computer like an idiot. You could still do your word processing and things like that. You can work on your school papers as well as play your ColecoVision. The whole point of it was to be an all-in-one device, and I think they overshot it a little bit. I think if they'd have released it in 1985 instead of 1983, where all the kinks worked out, I think it probably would still be selling today. They probably would have moved away from it being a combo console, but we'd still have Atoms. Because the hardware was, other than the power supply, the hardware was sound. And from what I understand, as far as usability, it was pretty far out there. I mean, it wasn't an Amiga by any chance, but it was easier to use than an IBM PC Junior or even a Commie 64 when it worked. Um, so yeah, that's basically it for the second generation consoles. I know I wanted to get into some of the more outlandish stuff, but honestly, you're probably not going to see an Emerson Arcadia 2001 out in in the wild. The Atari 5200, it's basically an Atari 800 or 400. Eventually, they ported that stuff over, all those 5200 games, to the Atari 400 and 800.
It was Emerson. What was the numbers?
Emerson Arcadia 2001.
Emerson Arcadia 2001. Let's see this thing.
Can you actually see it?
Yeah, it looks like a Coleco, not a Coleco. It looks like an Intellivision almost, but it has a joystick instead of a pad. Here you go, eBay, $600.
Oh wow, yeah, it's a collect. Yeah, it's collectible. How about this one? Unisonic Champion 2711.
Unisonic Champion 2711. Okay, I see it. Yeah, eBay. You can find anything on eBay.
Yeah, you can. You can. I, again, they did produce these, and as far as the collectors market goes, these are the ones that they're after because you didn't see too many of them out in the wild. Hell, some of them were only mail order back when we still did stuff like that. And in a lot of cases, they were Pong clones still. They were still producing Pong clones.
Right.
But yeah, that's about it for the first generation. There's a lot of them out there, but again, a lot of them didn't make a big splash. We've talked about the Odyssey 2, the Fairchild Channel F, the Atari 2600. We finally talked about the Vectrex in detail, as well as the ColecoVision. The ColecoVision, in my opinion, and apparently Jeffrey's, was probably the best of this era. Their problem was they tried to get into the computer business, whereas if they'd have been smart like Atari, they'd have just had one line for consoles and one line for computers.
Right. Right. No, I completely agree with that. But yeah, Fairchild F, I could be wrong, but I think Fairchild F was an exclusive, but I may be wrong on that. Give a selfless plug on there. We've got a lot of exclusives out there for you to listen to. So
Yes, we do.
if you want to become
Yeah,
a
and
patron.
apparently we can't number them the same.
Yeah, the last one we did, we messed up.
Was it 25?
We called it 25 in the show, but it was actually 24. So
Oh, okay. So
we
we're going
still
to do a
have
25 part 2.
yeah, we still have an exclusive 25 to do. So
Yay, us.
yeah, I don't do math. That's why I didn't get a math degree.
That's right.
So
That's what the processors are for, mofo.
exactly. I let that do all my math for me. I'm playing in a poker tournament next, or no, I don't know if I'm playing or if I'm going to help run it. I haven't decided yet. But anyway, we've so far collected 480 chips to use. And we're hoping to have like 40 people to play in the tournament, whittle it all down to, the last two and everything like that. But anyway, one of my buddies sent me a list of all the chips of the different colors and what we have. And my response to him was, okay, when I get in front of Excel, let me do some math so I can figure that out for 40 people. Who gets how many? Because I'm not doing that in my head.
No, I don't blame you.
So awesome. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. This was I mean, this was my generation of video games,
Yes.
It was the golden age of the arcade, the golden age of video games, and I had an Atari 2600 as my primary. Later on, I got a Commodore 64, but the Atari 2600, and I had hundreds of games.
Yeah,
hundreds.
They produced, I think, Atari 2600 had the most games produced for it.
Oh yeah, and at Christmas time, you could always find so many sales, and there were bargain bins you could go to where you get older games, and things like that. They didn't really have trade-ins back then, like you do with a GameStop now and everything like that. So you had to wait for sales, but yeah, it was a really cool era. Again, it was my era of video games where everything started. So it's really cool. It's good to talk about that kind of stuff. So appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
With that, we'll step over to the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
So today I got my information off Wikipedia, KCRA, NBC News 3, ABC 10 News, and Medium. And honestly, I probably could have pulled this off of hundreds and hundreds of sites. But a lot of them tell the same stories, and whatnot. I've known about this story since before we started podcasting. And I've been meaning to cover it for a while. and it's just kind of a weird story. That it's an unsolved disappearance. But this is the story of the Yuba County Five.
The Yuba County Five.
Mhm. The Yuba County Five. This was a group of young men from Yuba County, California, hence the name.
Hmm.
They each had mild intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions.
Hmm.
They were reported missing after they went to a college basketball game at California State University, Chico, which is also known as Chico State.
Hmm.
They disappeared on the night of February 24th, 1978. Four of them: Bill Sterling, who was 29, Jack Hewitt, who was 24, Ted Wire, who was 32, and Jack Madriga, who was 30, were later found dead. The fifth one, Gary Mathias, who was 25, has never been found. Several days after they disappeared, their car, which was a 1969 Mercury Montego, which was owned by Madruga, was found in a remote area of the Plymouth National Forest, which on a high mountain dirt road that was far out of their way of going back to Yuba County. Investigators couldn't determine why the car was abandoned, as it was
Hmm.
in good working order and could have easily been pushed out of the snowpack it was in. Um, and at that time, no trace of the men were found. Again, February 24th, 1978. After the snow melted in June of 78, four of the men's bodies were discovered. Ted Wire was found in a United States Forest Service USFS trailer about 20 miles north of the car. They only found bones of Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, and Jackie Hewitt as a result of scavenging animals. But Wire had apparently lived as long as 3 months after the men were last seen and eventually starving to death, even though he had an ample supply of food and heating materials nearby. Wire was also missing his shoes. Investigators found Matthias's own shoes in the USFS trailer, suggesting that Matthias also survived for some time beyond the group's last sighting. A local man later came forward and he claimed he had spent the same night in his own car a short distance away from where the Mercury had been found. He told police that he had seen and heard people around his car that night and twice called for help, only for them to grow silent and turn off their flashlights. This and the considerable distance from the car to where the bodies were found has led to suspicions of foul play. So Gary Mathias, when he was stationed in West Germany as part of his U.S. Army service in the early 70s, he developed drug problems. This eventually led him to being diagnosed with schizophrenia and being given a psychiatric discharge. Mathias returned to his parents' house in Marysville, California, and began treatment at a local mental hospital. This had been difficult at first, and he was nearly arrested for assault twice and often experienced psychotic episodes that landed him in the local Veterans Administration hospital. By 1978, he was being treated on an outpatient basis with stelazine and cogentin and was considered by his physicians to be one of our most, or quote, one of our sterling success cases. He supplemented his Army disability pay by working in his stepfather's gardening business. Off the job, outside the family, he was close friends with four men who all had intellectual disabilities, the four I mentioned before. And actually, the intellectual disabilities were Wire and Hewitt. The ones that were considered slow learners, Sterling and Madruga, were the other two. Madruga was also an Army veteran. Just like Matthias, each of the four men lived with their parents, all of whom referred to them collectively as, quote, the boys. Their favorite activity was sports. Their family said when the five of them got together, it was usually play a game or watch one. They played basketball together on a team called the Gateway Gators, which was a team supported by a local program for people with disabilities. And on February 25th, the Gators were due to play their first game in a week-long tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics, for which the winners would get a free week in Los Angeles.
Oh, nice.
So the five men prepared the night before. Some even laid out their uniforms and asking their parents to wake them up on time. They decided to drive to Chico later that same night to cheer on the UC Davis basketball team in an away game against Chico State. Madruga was the only member of the group besides Matthias who had a driver's license, so he drove the group 50 miles north of the Chico State campus in his 69 Mercury Montego that we mentioned earlier.
Good looking car. I was just looking them up. I was like, oh yeah, I know that car. That's nice.
Even though it was cool temperatures in the upper Sacramento Valley at night, that time of year, they only wore light coats. After the Davis team won the game, they got back into Madruga's car and drove the short distance from Chico State to Bears Market in downtown Chico. There they bought snacks, sodas, and cartons of milk to drink. This was shortly before the store's 10 p.m. closing time. The clerk later recalled the men because she was annoyed that such a large group had come in and delayed her from beginning the process of closing the store for the night. None of the men were seen alive again after this point.
He's the last one to see him alive.
She was, yes. So
Wow.
reportedly, she's the last one. The parents, most of them, were waiting up, make sure the boys returned, but when morning came, they hadn't. The police were called. Police in Butte and Yuba counties began searching along the route the men took to Chico, and they found no sign of them. But a few days later, a Plymouth National Forest ranger told investigators he had seen the Mercury parked in the forest along the Oroville-Quincy Road on February 25th. At the time, he had not considered it significant since many residents often drove up that road into the Sierra Nevada mountain range on winter weekends going cross-country skiing, as it has a very extensive trail system. But after reading the missing persons bulletin, he recognized the car and led deputies to it on February 28th. So evidence found inside the car suggests the men had been in it between the time when they had last seen and when it was abandoned. There were empty wrappers and containers from the food and drinks they had purchased from the store in Chico, along with programs from the basketball game they had attended and a neatly folded map of California. However, this raised more questions than it answered. One question was its location, because this was 70 miles from Chico, which was far off any direct route to Yuba City or Marysville. The family couldn't speculate as to why they might have driven up the long and winding dirt road on a winter night into a high elevation remote forest without any extra clothing. Madruga's parents said he did not like cold weather and had never been up into the mountain. Sterling's father had once taken his son to the area near where the car was found for a fishing weekend, but the younger man had not enjoyed it and remained at home when his father took later trips there. Police weren't sure why the men had abandoned the car. They had reached the 4,400 feet in elevation along the road, about where the snow line was that time of year, which is just short of where the road was closed for the winter. The car had become stuck in some snow drifts, and there was evidence that the men had tried to spin the wheels to get out of it. Police did note that the snow was not very deep and that the five healthy young men should have easily been able to push it out. The keys were not present in the car, suggesting at first that the car had been abandoned because it might have not have been operating properly with the intention of returning later with help. But when police hotwired the car, the engine started immediately and the fuel gauge indicated that the tank was 1/4 full.
Good.
This mystery would deepen after police towed the car back to the station for more thorough examination. The Mercury's undercarriage had no dents, gouges, or even mud scrapes, not even on its low-hanging muffler, despite having been driven a long distance up a mountain road with many bumps, ruts, and potholes.
Mm-hmm.
So either the driver had been extremely careful, or it was someone familiar with the road, which was a familiarity that Madruga was not known to have. His family said that Madruga would not have let somebody else drive the car. The car was unlocked and had a window rolled down when it was found, and Madruga's family indicated it was very unlike him to leave the car so unsecured. So again, people were searching the vicinity, but then it was stopped by a severe snowstorm that day. 2 days later, after searchers and snowcats nearly lost themselves, further search efforts were called off due to continuing bad weather, and no trace of the men was found other than the car. Local media coverage began of the case, and in response to this, police received several reports of some or all of the men being sighted after they had left Chico, including some reports of them being seen elsewhere in California or in the country. Most of the reports were easily dismissed, but two of the sightings stood out. Joseph Shones of Sacramento told police he inadvertently wound up spending the night of February 24th to 25th near where the Montego was found. This is the man we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
He had driven up there where he had a cabin to check the snowpack in advance of a weekend ski trip with his family. At 5:30 p.m., about 150 feet up the road, Shones had gotten stuck in the snow. In the process of trying to free it, he realized he was beginning to experience the early symptoms of a heart attack and went back in to keep the engine running to provide heat. 6 hours later, lying in the car and experiencing severe pain, Shones saw headlights coming up behind him. He looked out. He saw a car parked behind him with headlights on with a group of people around it, one of whom seemed to be a woman holding a baby. He called to the party for help, but they stopped talking and switched their headlights off. Later, he saw more lights from behind him, this time with flashlights that also went out when he called to them. And after that, he recalled a pickup truck parking 20 feet behind him briefly and then continuing on down the road. Later, he clarified to police that he could not be sure of that since the time he was almost delirious from the pain. After his car ran out of fuel in the early morning hours, his pain subsided enough for him to walk 8 miles down the road to a lodge where the manager drove him home, and they passed the abandoned Montego. Doctors later confirmed that he had indeed experienced a mild heart attack.
Yeah.
And walked 8 miles.
Jeez. 70s, man.
I know.
Hardcore.
Wire's mother said ignoring someone pleas for help was not like her son, if indeed he had been present for that. She recalled how he and Sterling had helped someone they knew get to the hospital after overdosing on Valium. The other notable report was from a woman who worked at a store in the small town of Brownsville, 30 miles from where the car had been abandoned, which they would have reached had they continued down the road. On March 3rd, the woman who saw flyers that had been distributed with the men's pictures and information about the $1,215 reward, which is almost $6,000 today, that the families had put up, she told the deputies that 4 of them had stopped at the store in a red pickup truck the day after the disappearance. Remember, Shones saw a pickup truck too.
Yeah, he saw a pickup truck, but he wasn't sure.
Right. The store owner did corroborate this account. The woman said she immediately realized the men were not from the area because of their, quote, big eyes and facial expressions. I don't know what that means. 2 of the men whom she identified as Hewitt Sterling were in a telephone booth outside the store while the other 2 went inside. The police said she was a credible witness and they took her account seriously. Additional details came from the store owner, who told investigators that men whom he believed to be Wire and Hewitt came in and bought burritos, chocolate milk, and soft drinks. Wire's brother told the Los Angeles Times that while driving to Brownsville in a different car in apparent ignorance of the basketball game, seemed completely out of character for them. The owner's description of the 2 men's behavior seemed consistent with them, as Wire would eat anything he could get his hands on and was often accompanied by Hewitt more than any of the 4. Hewitt's brother said Jack hated using telephones to the point he would answer calls for Jack whenever he received any from the other men in the group. So the evidence was not pointing to any clear conclusion about what happened to the night the 5 men disappeared. Police and the families were not ruling out the possibility they had met with foul play. The eventual discovery of 4 of the 5 men's bodies seemed to suggest otherwise, but raised even more questions about what happened that night and whether at least one of them might have been rescued. So as we had talked about earlier, on June 4th, most of the snow had melted, and there was a group of motorcyclists who went to a trailer maintained by the United States Forestry Service at a campsite off the road about 19.4 miles from where the Montego had been found. The front window of the trailer had been broken, and when they opened the door, they were overcome by the stench of what turned out to be a decaying body inside it, which would later be identified as Wire's. So searchers returned to Plumas and followed the road between the trailer and the site of the Montego. The next day, they found remains that were later identified as those of Madruga and Sterling on opposite sides of the road, almost 12 miles from where the car had been. Madruga's body had been partially consumed by scavenging animals, and only bones remained of Sterling scattered across the area. Autopsies of them showed they both died of hypothermia, and deputies think that one of them may have given in to the need to sleep, so that comes with the last stages of hypothermia, while the other stayed by his side and then died the same way. 2 days later, as part of the search parties, Hewitt's father found his son's backbone under a manzanita bush 2 miles northeast of the trailer. His shoes and jeans nearby helped identify his body. The next day, a deputy sheriff found a skull downhill from the bush, about 300 feet away, confirmed by dental records later to have been Hewitt's, and his death, too, was attributed to hypothermia. In an area to the northwest of the trailer, roughly a quarter mile away, searchers found 3 Forest Service blankets and a rusted flashlight by the road. Could not be determined how long they had been there. And since Matthias had presumably not taken his medication, pictures of him were distributed to mental institutions all over California. However, no trace of him has ever been found. Wire's body was on a bed with 8 sheets wrapped around it, including the head. Autopsy showed that he had died of a combination of starvation and hypothermia. He had lost nearly half of his 200 pounds. His growth of his beard suggested he had lived slightly more than 3 months from when he had last shaved. His feet were badly frostbitten and almost gangrenous. On a table next to the bed were some of Weir's personal effects, including his wallet with cash, a nickel ring with head engraved on it, and a gold necklace he also wore. Also on the table was a gold watch without its crystal, which Wire's family said was not his, and there was a partially melted candle. He was wearing a velour shirt with lightweight pants, but his shoes could not be found, as we had talked about before. But investigators couldn't figure out how he'd come to his fate. There was no fire that had been set in the trailer's fireplace, despite an ample supply of matches and paperback novels that he could have used as kindling.
Mm-hmm.
There was heavy forestry clothing, which would have kept the men warm, but also remained where they had been stored. There was also a dozen sea ration cans from a storage shed outside that had been opened and their contents consumed, but a locker in that same shed that had an even greater amount of dehydrated foods, enough to keep all 5 men fed for a year if it had been necessary, had never been opened. Similarly, another shed nearby held a butane tank with a valve that, had it been open, would have fed the trailer's heating system. Weir's family members did say that he lacked common sense as a result of his cognitive disability. For example, he often asked why he should stop at a stop sign, and one night had to be dragged out of bed while the ceiling of his bedroom was burning in a house fire because he was afraid he was miss his job if he got up. It also appeared that Weir had not been alone in the trailer, and that Matthias and possibly Hewitt had also been there. Matthias's tennis shoes were found in the trailer, and the sea rations had been opened with a P-38 can opener, which only Matthias or Madruga would have been familiar with from their military service.
Yeah, I've seen them. I don't know how to use them.
Okay, so I was going to disagree with that point, but maybe that's just me because I know how to use a P-38. I used to carry one on my keychain for years.
Yeah, I don't know how to use them. I've seen people who can, and it amazes me. It's like,
but I was in the military, but of course, by the time I was in the military, we didn't use P-38s. I had a P-38 because I don't know, I thought they were cool. But I know how to use it. But anyway, Matthias, his feet were possibly also swollen from frostbite. Could have decided to put on Weir's shoes instead if he had ventured outside. The sheets all over Weir's body also suggested that one of the others had been there with him, as his gangrenous feet would have been in too much pain for him to pull over his body himself.
Mm-hmm.
So even knowing that 4 of the 5 men died in the Sierras, investigators still could not completely explain what led to their deaths. They found no explanation as to why the men were there, although they learned that Matthias had friends in a small town of Forbestown, and police believed it was possible that in an attempt to visit them on the way back home, the men had taken the wrong turn near Oroville that put them on the mountain road.
Like, I was going to ask, why were they there in the first place? But
that's what they're not sure of. That's the possibility.
Oh, hey, they could have gone to visit his friends that lived up there, and they just got lost.
Maybe. I mean, for whatever reason, they left the Montego. That they instead of going back down the road where they had passed the lodge that Shones later returned to, they
Hmm.
continued along the road in the direction they were originally going. The day before the men went missing, a USFS Snowcat had gone along the road in that direction to clear snow off the trailer roof so it would not collapse. It's
Hmm.
possible that the group had decided to follow the tracks it left through snow, although snowdrifts were 4 to 6 feet high,
Yeah.
to wherever they led, in the belief that shelter was not too far away. Most likely, though, Madruga and Sterling died of hypothermia about halfway through the long walk to the trailer, and Hewitt soon after.
Hmm.
It is assumed once they found the trailer that the other two broke the window to enter. Since it's locked, they may have believed it was private property and feared arrest for theft if they used anything else they found there.
Yeah.
After Weir died, or after Matthias thought he died, he may have decided to try to get back to civilization by different ways, such as walking overland. So
Yeah.
something obviously happened between the time that they left Chico on February 24th and the next day when the mercury was found. It likely happened before around the time that they passed through Oroville on Route 70,
Hmm.
where instead of continuing the drive to Yuba City, they struck it out for the mountains. But why?
Yeah.
You know,
Why?
did they decide to take a side trip? Were they forced a detour? And if so, who forced them to make the detour?
Yeah. And where's the red pickup? And what happened to the last guy?
Well, exactly. And that's part of the questions that remain. I mean, why did they drive 50 miles in the wrong direction? How did they end up on an unfamiliar mountain road in a remote forest? Why did they abandon a perfectly operatable vehicle? Who were the people that Joseph Shones saw on the road the night the boys disappeared? Why did
Yeah,
they
the red
shut off
truck
their?
people.
Well, there were two. There were a couple of cars. The truck was the second one he saw, or the third one he saw. There may have been
Yeah.
three.
Oh, that's right. He saw some other lights.
Um, but if this was them, why did they shut off their headlights and flashlights and go silent when Shones called for help?
Yeah.
Who was the mother and baby that Shones thought he saw with the voice?
Good point. Could he have been delirious and not actually seen a red truck although somebody else saw a red truck
Somebody
too.
else saw a red truck. Delirium is possible. Who knows? Why did Ted Weir starve for weeks rather than eat the rations that were on site? Why did he
Yeah.
freeze versus heat the trailer? What happened to the car keys? Those have never been found. Now, last but not least, where's Gary Mathia?
Yeah.
Um, it's been over 45 years since they disappeared, since they left on a winter night. Um,
How old was Gary Mathias?
Gary Mathias was, hold please, 25.
So he'd be what, 70 now?
This was in 78, so
Yeah,
I
he'd be
don't know.
70.
I told you I don't do math.
Yeah, right around 70. He'd be right
Yeah,
around 70.
if he was still alive, he would be right around 70. Yeah. Um, I don't. The story has become legend.
Hmm.
And it still inspires speculation. The number of victims, the bizarre sightings, there were weird clues, and the vast area that all the events unfolded, it make it just this huge mystery.
Hmm.
It remains one of America's most perplexing cold cases.
Wow.
The
What? But it doesn't appear to be murder.
we don't know. Gary Mathias,
Hmm.
he just disappeared. You can murder if you force somebody to die of hypothermia.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see what you're
I'm
saying.
not
Yeah.
saying
Okay.
he is. I'm not saying he is a murderer, and I don't always cover murder. I have covered just
That's true. That's
disappearances,
true.
and this
I
is
know. I
one
just
of
like to point out,
those.
hey, nobody died in this one, but yeah, a lot of people
No,
did die.
people did. A lot of people did die in this
A
one.
lot of people died.
Um, the Yuba County Sheriff's Office still receives calls about the case here and there, but it's usually speculation. They have asked that if there's anyone that has information on the case to please call the sheriff's office, and their number is 530-249-7777. And that's the strange story of the Yuba County Five.
Well, thank you for sir for that. That brought up more questions than answers,
I
but that's
know.
kind of what we do.
Like I said, I've known this story for a very, very long time. I've I've heard this on at least 3 other podcasts that I know of. So, I mean, I'm not the first one to cover this story. It's very famous, and like I said, very legendary, because it's just weird. There's
Mhm.
so many questions that go into that one. So, anyway, that's my story for this week, and I appreciate you sticking with me through it.
Well, thank you, sir.
That will take us to the end of another recording week. As always, you can find more information on us on nerderymurdery.com. That's our hub for everything we talk about this show. There are links for this episode and pictures for this episode. And you'll also find the link to our YouTube, which Zig so often updates.
Yeah, in this episode, they actually go through and show some of or the playlist for this episode. Someone basically breaks down, each one of the consoles and kind of shows them to you, and here are the best, and here's one you will never see out in the wild, and it's kind of cool. A little drier than the way we presented it. But if you want to see it, there you go.
Awesome. I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you, sir.
You can also find the link to our merchandise page on our website. If you wish to show off your Nerdery and Murdery fandom, please do consider purchasing something from there. You'll also find the link to our Patreon. Our patrons, along with our merchandise sales, go to the costs that are associated with this show. It costs to keep us on the air for our storage, for our upload, for our website, everything that goes around with it. It is not free, and we do appreciate each and every one of you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you. Last but not least, please don't forget to leave a 5-star review wherever you can. It really helps us, helps others find our content that may be looking for the information we discuss. And the second, last but not least, Chuck, you can go to sleep now.
Good night, Chuck.
Good night, Chuck. With that,
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Jeffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.
Dream state, Nerdery and Murdery fate. Voices in the wire, 2 dudes light the fire. Obsession and confession, games and death's procession. Through the microphone they speak, dark secrets, geeks seek. Nerdery, Murdery, crazy blend, horror tales that never end. Dice roll, blood spills, podcasts, thrill the mind fills. Techie talk, ghostly howl, geekdom's graveyard prowl. Mingling thoughts collide, fascination can't hide.